Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here on February 24th at the MACC Policy Board meeting at the wonderful Zealand Charter Township Hall. Before we go into introductions and approval of minutes, I just wanted to quickly update you on well, I don't really have an update per se, but if you hadn't heard, David was diagnosed with cancer and he's going through chemo. Originally, he thought that he would be able to, come back in between chemo to. He was filling in as interim director, a couple days a week or so, but then he did send an email saying it was a little too much. So what we agreed to do is I'm just filling in as needed, mostly, we've got a great team, they run the place. The only use I am to them is to sign checks when needed. And so I know my place, but we're just kind of making it work till March 1st. A quick update on the other Tyler Kent, not this one. The new executive director that will start March 1st. There were only a couple things that were left. We got those done. It was a drug screen and a background check, and obviously passed all those things. And we've got a signed contract. He's expected to start around March 1st. I know he was in the process of working on getting a mortgage and buying a house and all those good things. So. Hopefully we'll have him on board soon, but keep David in your prayers, and hopefully with all the treatment that's out there today, he'll be back, and that's it. Just wanted to fill you in that. Okay, for introductions, maybe we'll go this way on the right.
Nathan Box, City of Holland.
John Klein-Axel, Allegheny County Road Commission.
Ken DeWeer, Fillmore Township.
Skip Keeter, Park Township.
Howard Bauman, Port Sheldon Township.
Tyler Kent, MDOT Grand Region.
Don Mail, MDOT Statewide Planning.
Elisa Hookwater with Max Transit.
Joe Bauman, Ottawa County Board of Commissioners.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Todd Walters, Olive Township.
Kevin Kleinster, City of Zealand.
Glenn Eckham, Zoom Township.
Hannes Myers, the MAC.
Judy Fisher with the MACC.
Funky Drive with Hampshire with the MACC.
With the MAC.
Kelly Goward with the MACC.
Rob Vink with the MAC. Paul Sachs with Ottawa County.
Margaret with the MACC.
Terry Martin, Carrier and Gable.
And then we All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, and for being here. The first thing up is just the review of the minutes from January 6th. Any corrections or?
Just one correction. Item 5 under Transportation Program D at the very end says the next Transportation Planning Commission would be on July 30th. That should be January 30th. Everybody find
Okay,
that?
yeah, bottom of page 2.
Yeah.
It'll be January what?
30th
2021.
or 2020. It's been January, but we had it.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Sorry, I missed it last week. Okay, if there aren't any other changes or corrections to the minutes, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Glenn?
Support.
Support Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I think first up we have Kelly Goward. Kelly, can you fill us in?
No.
Oh,
Public comment.
oh, I'm sorry. This was in my, yeah, it's been a while. We'll just open it up for public comments if there are any from the public. No? Okay. All right, then we'll start with the presentation. Paul Sachs, with the director of, who's the director of Ottawa County Planning and Performance Improvement.
Good afternoon. So thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I appreciate that. The opportunity to share with you I think what the presentation is going to be is to end with groundwater. I know on the agenda it says groundwater overview. I'm going to start just giving an overview of what our office does and then close it out on one of the biggest projects that the county has in front of it today. Moving through our slides, clicker. It's some way. Bear with me. Public comments, presentation, that's me. Okay. Our office, if you don't know, has 3 divisions. First division is coordinated land planning. We have an economic development division, and we have a performance improvement division. Have an office of 10, fantastic staff, and they do great work. I've got a lot of slides in this presentation, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly, just again to give you an overview of what we do. Performance improvement division in the Department of Planning and Performance Improvement, we are responsible for improving organizational performance and maximizing the use of financial resources at the county level, and we also support nonprofits and other entities and local units of government with this work. And we do this performance improvement work through program evaluations and special studies, and we do research, data, and statistics. From an evaluation perspective, we're currently partnered with Ottawa Food and their efforts to increase access to healthy, local, fresh food across the county. So we review their programs to ensure administrative performance, and they're working towards achieving results. Public Health Department partnered with that entity to evaluate. For example, they have a Wear One program that helps to control STDs in the county through a condom distribution program from 18 to 24-year-olds. So when we're involved in a long-range study on the efficacy of that endeavor. We also have done some special studies. Many of you in this room may be familiar with our tax increment finance study that we completed about 4 years ago now, kind of looking at TIF districts in the county and how they operate. We're also involved in a special study right now at the City of Holland, working to assess all of their boards, commissions, and committees for those entities or those members, part of that committee, to do some self-reflection on what they're accomplishing and ultimately how the work of each of those boards, commissions, and committees aligns with the strategic vision of the City of Holland. So we will be presenting to the City of Holland tomorrow night on that effort. Other special studies, we partnered with the Lakeshore Nonprofit Alliance and conducted the first of its kind a countywide assessment of the overall health of all of our nonprofit agencies in Ottawa County. This was a great undertaking, highly collaborative project that provided some analysis, some results for the LNA that can really provide some strategic direction for them over the next 2 to 3 years on how they can continue to support and grow and nurture the efficiency, effectiveness, and the operational structures of our nonprofits moving forward. We do intend to do a follow-up study within 3 to 5 years to see how progress occurs. And then research, data, and statistics. We do a tremendous amount of that work, and a lot of that data is online, and people can call us or email as well for certain research and data and analysis. Economic development projects, maybe where we have a countywide brownfield redevelopment authority. We had an EPA grant maybe about 4 years ago now, the highly successful leveraged $400,000 EPA grant and ended up pulling about $30 million in private investment and created over 400 jobs. We've been continuously applying to the EPA to get the funding back for brownfield redevelopment, phase 1, phase 2 assessments. Incredibly competitive grant program. So in the interim, since we have not received that, we have created one of the first of its kind, a locally driven investment program where there's monies available that we've been collecting through administrative fees on brownfield plans in the county and also partnering with the land bank. And so there's money available for phase 1 and phase 2 assessments. So keep that in mind at the local level for those opportunities. We also administer a farmland preservation program. Many of you are probably aware that we have a purchase of a development rights program at the county. It's been in operation for about 11 years now. We did a large-scale study of landowners, a survey of landowners in the county, look at opportunities to augment or enhance that PDR program to see what else our agricultural community needs to support its effort. Ag in Ottawa County, as all of you know, is one of the most dominant industries. We're most dominant and most diverse commodity production across the state. So big efforts here on kind of redefining what farmland preservation means in the county. Also look from a county-wide perspective, access to high-speed broadband. Our urban area, you talk to some folks that live in our urban areas or youth in our urban areas, and they might not be aware that there are locations in Ottawa County where people don't have access to reliable, high-speed, affordable broadband. So we're continuously looking to identify the right opportunities and collaborating with the right partners to make those things happen. Some of the interim steps that we're taking collaboratively, not only working with private sector partners to see who can get the right type of ROI to expand broadband to our underserved areas, but our libraries have stepped forward. We've collaborated with them. We're able to secure a grant for all of our libraries where they now have hotspot devices available for people to check out, and all nine libraries across the county. And we're pulling in data, they're tracking it for us, and we'll evaluate how well that's working. But some of the anecdotal stories coming back from library directors is exceptionally positive. There's really good value here on having these hotspot devices for people to check out. Land use planning projects. And from countywide perspective, one of the larger projects from non-motorized trail endeavor is a Spoonville Trail. That is the critical north-south connector across the Grand River that will connect the Idema Explorers Trail that the County Parks Department is working on the south side of the Grand River. We'll connect it to the North Bank Trail on the north side of the Grand River. Phase 1 was completed, connecting them 231 Bridge up to Leonard Street. Phase 2 of Spoonville, we anticipate construction to start this spring, and that will ultimately connect up to Nunica, the village of Nunica, and there'll be a kind of a rest interchange area there that the North Bank people are working on. So that'll be a great project, and that trail itself will go through the Terra Verde golf course and their ravines and through the woodlands. Obviously not on the greens themselves, but in the woods, and it's going to be gorgeous when that is completed. So by this fall, we hope to have a ribbon cutting on the final section, which will be there. Paved shoulders as well. We continue to collaborate with local units of government, other partners, and the Road Commission based on a plan that was developed about 10 years ago, non-motorized pathway connectivity cross-jurisdictionally in the county. There are several routes that are identified for not only separated pathways, but paved shoulder pathways for the more serious cyclists that like to get on the road. Lakeshore Drive is considered one of those premier routes for cyclists. The Road Commission has agreed to put 3-foot shoulders on Lakeshore Drive from Grand Haven all the way down. We've been doing this incrementally. Through the support of our partners and local units of government, we've been raising the additional funds to add an extra foot onto those paved shoulders to create the AASHTO recommended standards for vehicular and bike safety on those roads. This year in summer 2020, there will be the 1.5 mile segment that will go in by the Road Commission from Lakewood down to Riley Street. So we have the paved shoulders on there. And then we've already, through our partners, have secured the funding needed to complete the 4-foot shoulders from Lakewood all the way down to 168th, just north of Lake Macatawa. So that is a great project to have that completed. Then countywide, we're also refining the non-motorized pathway plan, paved shoulders and separated pathways, identifying what has been constructed, also what is being planned for future connections based on local unit, rec, and non-motorized pathway plans, and then countywide, looking at where are there continued opportunities to enhance connections from a non-motorized pathway network. Ottawa County is just premier in its connectivity from a non-motorized perspective, and there's opportunities to continue to excel and enhance that type of amenity for the public. We will be taking that non-motorized pathway plan into an online system that'll be easier for the public to access. At this point, we're calling it the Ottawa County Path Mapper. So those routes will be identified, again, countywide, and we're pulling up some spots to identify historic locations or places points of interest will be identified on that map, and it'll be, again, in a dynamic form, potentially maybe even going into a mobile app device that would be really valuable for residents and others and tourists alike. Come and see how well we are connected amongst our local units of government. Urban smart growth. It's a demonstration project. I've been working with the city of Hudsonville for nearly 15 years now. And if you've gone through Hudsonville recently, you can see some changes. Hudsonville is getting a downtown environment. That all originated from this partnership that we've had with Hudsonville. We've rewritten their master plan, downtown master plan, citywide master plan, and then we're codifying that into their new urban smart growth zoning code for Hudsonville. We expect to have that citywide zoning code complete by the end of the year. But just tremendous work has happened with the leadership in Hudsonville to make some great enhancements for vibrancy and livability in the city, and that downtown environment is fantastic. And then we pull the planners together. We try to do this a couple times a year, all the planners from across the county. Talk about what we're doing, what we're up to, share knowledge and information, and we do a variety of workshops and trainings. We just had a 101 training for Planning Commission members and ZBA members, but then we elevate some of those trainings, looking at strong towns or other design concepts that might be of interest, not only for planners, but local officials and others. So then, it's groundwater. This is, as Al Vanderberg has indicated, this is one of the most pressing, important projects in Ottawa County at this time. Many of you, I'm sure you're familiar with what our challenges are, but it's surprising how hard it is for people to wrap their head around what the issue is for Ottawa County. It's always considered kind of an out west challenge, having groundwater depletion. You can see those areas that we know in the plain states and the southwest states where they have challenges with groundwater depletion. Michigan just not identified as having that type of challenge. But here we are with our bedrock Marshall sandstone formation, which is a primary aquifer in the state of Michigan. 7 years ago, it's about 10 years ago now, we started to experience some challenges with that system. So we learned more and more about it through 7 years of scientific study, where Ottawa County is situated and how much we're utilizing that Marshall sandstone aquifer formation. It's amazing when you explain to the public, when I've done these presentations, and you say, yes, does anyone believe that people in Ottawa County have turned on their faucets in the morning and run out of water? And no one can believe it. But that actually happened in Allendale with a couple subdivisions that were constructed, and they're all well dependent. And this was about 2008. We also, about that same time, had a couple farmers approach us, say, yes, one soybean farmer up in Polkton Township approached us and said, I irrigated my soybean fields last night, and today my whole crops are burnt. They all died. and find out that that water was rich in salt water. He's pumping his system and his irrigation equipment and just pumping salt water out of the ground. So from that point, we did not put our head in the sand. We put our head underneath the ground, underneath the surface, to really figure out what is going on. So the breakdown is, there's a cross-section of Ottawa County, or of Michigan, from Ottawa County over to the thumb area. Here we are, Ottawa and Kent, and then Bay and Huron on the other side. So we're developing on top of that surface. The glacial aquifer system sits on top. Then there's a Marshall sandstone aquifer system. That's the deep bedrock aquifer that's underneath our feet. The sandstone, that Marshall, you could probably say on average, maybe it's about 80 feet below the surface, if you want an average depth and where that might be. And you'll notice here it's unique in that this Marshall sandstone does not connect to Lake Michigan. You think, yes, we live by Lake Michigan. There's such a huge, vast body of water. We drill into the ground anywhere in Ottawa County, no problem. There's an abundant supply of fresh water. That is not the case. Those two systems are not connected. It's unique for Ottawa County as well. If you look along the shorelines, Port Sheldon Township area, these green dots represent wells that are in the glacial system. That's that aggregate material that just sits on the top. As we move into the interior of the county, red dots here represent those private wells that are in the bedrock Marshall sandstone formation. And that boundary, that shape going through there, that's kind of the outcrop of where that Marshall comes up, right below that, the aquifer, the glacial aquifer system. From a statewide perspective, pretty unique where Ottawa County sits. In this map, the glacial wells are represented as blue and bedrock are red. Most of West Michigan, the west shoreline of the state, everyone's in that glacial, for the most part, in that glacial formation. You look at Ottawa County, mainly bedrock wells. It's very unique for this area. And our area of concern is right in the center part of the county, impacting primarily, it extends beyond jurisdictional boundaries, but primarily it's Allendale Township, Blendon, Olive, and Robinson Township that are impacted by this. And there's been growth in those communities over the last several years. Since 1990, about 126% increase in population growth. So the studying that MSU did looked at the drawdown on that system. And over about 35 years, there has been a drop in the water level in that Marshall sandstone formation of over 40 foot. A 40-foot drop in the water level in that system. In these presentations, people often note, they know what a strong ag community, ag county we are. And people often say, well, we're pumping too much water. Our agricultural producers are pumping too much water out of that system. There are not very many, relative to residential wells, there are very few wells from agricultural producers that go on into that deep system. But hypothetically, just throwing these numbers out there, a high volume, high capacity well is anything over 75 gallons a minute. Let's just say you get a 300 gallon per minute pump by a farmer. He needs to use that well water for maybe 3 months out of the year. Because there's 9 months out of the year, our farmers are dealing with too much water on the surface. In a residential subdivision that goes in, it's all well dependent, it doesn't have access to public water supply. take a minimum 10 gallon a minute pump. So you get 300 gallons a minute. Whoop. Basically 24/7, 365. All right, we're just using that water. So here's a breakdown cross-section of what the issue is. Here's Lake Michigan. There's a Marshall sandstone. So picture that just stretching across the whole state of Michigan. It comes up here. Homeowners drilling a well down in the glacial or into the glacial or through the clay layer into the Marshall. So there's a static water level that sits in that Marshall sandstone formation. Glacial aquifer, notice that middle well. In the center part of the county, that glacial system it's very thin. There's not much material there that can give a homeowner a continuous supply of water from a well. We know in the center part of the county, for the most part, we do not have the extensive public infrastructure, public water supply, as we do in our more urbanized areas that run the perimeter of the county. So as development continues in the middle part of the county, and there's no public water supply, you've got to go into a well. You drill a well, glacier's not productive, so we have to go through this clay layer. The clay layers are one of our challenges. That is what was found out after the 7 years of study with MSU, is unfortunately, we now know that that layer of clay, we say, this, as we're pumping water out, it's dropping. Right? I talked about that 40-foot drop. And as snowfall and rainfall happens, it cannot get through that clay layer. It bounces right off it. It's impermeable. And that is our very unique challenge. We didn't understand the geology up until the spring of 2018 when those study results were finally released. So now we know the reason why people are putting their wells into the bedrock formation. Bunch more straws going into that system. We're getting that gradual decline in water level. One challenge. Then you might recall I mentioned the farmer. I said, yeah, I burned my crops with water that was rich in salt. That is because the bottom of that sandstone formation, sodium chloride, rich briny water that's 9 times saltier than the ocean. Michigan, about 300 million years ago, ancient times, was a shallow saltwater sea. And when that all changed, all that salt water and sand turned into that sandstone formation. Salt is in that sand. The glaciers came through about 300 to 200,000 years ago. And when the glaciers retreated, that water filled the sandstone. It's ancient water that we're pumping out. And we know this because some of the testing that went into that water didn't identify that tritium that occurred from the atomic weapons that were occurring. It's not found in that Marshall. It means we have a really slow, very slow recharge in that system. So the projections based on our population growth trends and what we anticipate will happen going into the future, MSU modeled it, and we can see this continued decline in that sandstone formation, static water level. It's a challenge there because then we're continuously pumping up more salt into those systems. People have pulled, and they're doing it right now, and some farmers are too that are still in that system. They're pulling their pumps up, so they're not in that as salty of water, but then there's challenges with the right kind of capacity. So it's an interesting challenge that we need to resolve moving forward. And when we look at what we need to do, it really is thinking differently than we have previously about our land use planning, how we do that, how we look at infrastructure planning, how we do our building and site development, look at stormwater management and green infrastructure challenges, utilizing more. We have so much surface water right now. We can utilize that a lot more from storage and retention basins, and we can also utilize stormwater storage and retention to identify areas of the county where there is some connectivity to that Marshall Sandstone Formation. There are areas of the county, anecdotally, that we're identifying through some of the study materials that clay doesn't exist or it's fractured, so there is some water getting down to that system. We can help it out. We can't do, we've looked at it, but a direct, forced recharge of that system, one, there's a cost factor, and what's the benefit? How much value would you get out of that forced recharge? Number one, we don't know, from some hydrogeologists have explained it, if that Marshall Sandstone will even accept forced recharge. If we do start to put some recharge into the Marshall Sandstone to help it out, we also know that there's really slow lateral movement of water. Just because you turn on the faucet, it doesn't fill up the tub. Imagine the tub is just in these little chambers. So there's other challenges that we need to think about moving forward. And a big item to look at and to work with and inform the public about is our water use. And that's a behavioral change component, because we live in Michigan. We live by Lake Michigan. We don't think about water in the same way that folks may who have challenges with groundwater out west or in the plain states. So our primary goal of our management plan, we had to give one overarching goal, is to reduce dependency on that bedrock system. And how are we going to do that? Creative solutions to offset new withdrawals. We got to think creatively. We're in a whole new territory here on land planning and groundwater management, and we're being viewed by others across the state as kind of the trailblazers on what we need to do to manage this issue, to ensure our continued economic growth and vitality. We also need to protect and enhance that recharge of the system. We can't ignore that there's recharge opportunities there. And we also need to embrace water conservation and reuse, water recycling. Huge opportunity for that we've never, in Michigan and West Michigan in particular, we've never really thought about. Strategy areas in the document itself, we broke it up into 4 sections. One is education. That's going to be big. Continue to get out in the public. And then integrating behavioral change and how we perceive and utilize water. Then we have a section on the mitigation strategies. It's kind of the nuts and the bolts and the technical elements and that coordinated land planning. And then there's the coordination among local units of government and how we'll administer and oversee this long-range planning endeavor. I'm going to cruise through the next few slides for each section, just some highlights on what they are. Education strategies, it's outreach. That's really big. And messaging, working with our community institutions and doing presentations and having materials available. Also working with our youth. Multiple schools have approached us. I'll be talking with a couple hundred kids at Allendale Public School on Wednesday, and the students are doing really great because they're taking these materials, and the Allendale Christian, their students have created some PSAs that they're working on right now. So they're bringing this information back home and sharing it. Like, do you know these water challenges with Ottawa County? So the more we get our youth engaged in what's happening and understanding the geology, the better. And we're able to tie right into the curriculums at the schools. And then working with our college institutions as well. Huge support from research perspectives and technical expertise. Integration strategies, integrating behavioral change, big opportunities, looking at landscaping differently, as opposed to thinking strictly turf grass that's very water dependent, needs a lot of water. How can we incorporate more native landscaping, alternative landscape design, and how can our local unit of government ordinances encourage and facilitate improved landscape management that's more eco and conscious friendly? Alternative, let's see, also flipping here, alternative irrigation recommendations as well. Big opportunity for people. I mean, if you're going to get an underground sprinkler systems, they'll exist, right? Well, we can design those better, and rain sensors, number one, maybe that should be a requirement if you get an underground sprinkler system. Get a rain sensor. Or soaker hoses that don't use as much water. So we're partnering up with the West Michigan Nursery and Landscape Association. We'll be working with the industry professionals on how to think about the design and maintenance of these systems moving forward. And then encouraging local units of government and neighborhood associations to allow rain barrels to happen so people can start reusing water in that way. Service provider training, I had mentioned that to you. We're embarking on that now, doing some due diligence on the potential for that to happen. And then there's household conservation strategies. It's promoting those opportunities and talking about that. People know about turning the faucet off when you brush your teeth and loading the dishwasher fully, right? Those are the little things. But now, from a homeowner, I get a lot of homeowners say, what can I do? You guys are looking at this stuff from a planning perspective, but as a homeowner, what can I do? There's little things, your landscaping and how you use your water at home. We're also considering creating a certified blue program potentially for buildings, public and private buildings. We have energy efficiency programs. We need to build more into water efficiency into those programs. I think it's a big opportunity for us. And then continuing to work with our agricultural community. They have some great partnerships with the NRCS and the Conservation District, Outdoor Discovery Network, and the MACC and others to support our ag industry, giving them the water that they need for irrigation. Mitigation strategies, it's model zoning guidelines. Looking at lot size and density in the right spots, landscaping requirements, allowable uses, just kind of thinking about how we do our land use planning now that we have this new information on water sustainability. Zoning district overlays could potentially happen. As I mentioned, that there are some areas of potential recharge in the county that has some connectivity down to that bedrock formation. We do need to get a robust groundwater monitoring network installed across the county. It will be one of the largest, most robust systems that we're aware of, especially in the state of Michigan. Get those sensors in the ground sooner rather than later, and then we can start to spatially define where these areas are of recharge, and then work with our local units of government to see how can we continue to support, encourage porous materials and other types of development, green infrastructure in these right spots to again enhance that recharge as opposed to not considering it at all. To mention that monitoring network, that would be really big for us. Identify those recharge areas, start to calculate a more defined groundwater budget, and then working with infrastructure, mapping and planning. Working with Pat Stiskevich right now, public utilities at the road commission level, and they're embarking on looking at their infrastructure plan update from a countywide perspective. Good opportunity in there. And then other policies, runoff storage solutions, working with well drillers, getting more data, and coordinated future land use plan would be really big for the county as well. We do not have a vision of what how the county may want to grow into the future. It's really important for us to start thinking on that broader scale, especially now that we have this groundwater information available to us. So we'll be embarking on this highly collaborative countywide future land use plan very soon. Coordination strategies, as mentioned, the groups to kind of support us. We're looking at creating a technical advisory board. I've been utilizing groundwater executive committee of technical experts to kind of support our office and give us the expertise that we need. Want to formalize that group into an actual groundwater technical advisory board. No help, technical support, and diagnose and solve unique challenges for us. And then a groundwater commission. So we have a groundwater task force, I believe it's about 11 members that help guide the 7-year study from MSU. We want to take that task force and formalize it into what will be, our understanding is the first county groundwater commission in the state of Michigan, and that will have representation from multiple industry sectors. What this may look like from a flow perspective, you can see the Board of Commissioners, Planning Commission, Administration. We put that commission in this area, tie it with a technical advisory board, supporting and working through our office. And then we have some logistical facilitation with partners. This is a highly collaborative effort. We cannot do this alone. We cannot do this with just local units of government. This involves multiple stakeholders. So all of our partners ultimately bringing this forward to the general public and mitigating these issues moving forward. So we did the Board of Commissioners it was the end of December, I believe. They did formally adopt the Proactive Strategies Index that we created that identifies all the strategies we need to pursue over the next many years to mitigate this issue moving forward. And that information is available online. The technical reports are online, and other updates, myottawa.org/groundwater. But I accept questions now.
Appreciate wonderful information. I know we have a relatively large agenda, so I want to make sure members have some time for questions for you for the next few minutes, if there's any questions for Paul or along the Lake Michigan area? No? Okay. All right, any last words or?
No, I appreciate the time and attention.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all your work. That's a lot of information I think we didn't know. I know I didn't. Thank you. So up next, I believe this time Kelly.
All right, so in your packet, you do have a copy of the Lake MACC Water Quality Dashboard that's produced every year by the Annis Water Resources Institute, kind of the snapshot of their monitoring for the past year. So I do want to just review it briefly, but remind you that there is a full monitoring report that I think it's somewhere between 70 and 80 pages that has a lot more information, a lot more parameters that have been measured than what's in the dashboard. So that report is available on our website. If you go to our website and find the water quality monitoring, you can download the full 2019 report. The dashboard is based on just the sampling that they do in the lake itself, which they do 3 times a year. And then they just pull out some of those key parameters to put in the dashboard. And then they've got some historical data just for some comparison, and we can see the trends. So the 3 parameters that are in there are total phosphorus. So it's kind of our key parameter, the most important one that we're looking at, because that is the total maximum daily load that we're working toward on the lake. And so they can put it in this kind of a dashboard so it's easier to understand than just looking at charts and tables of data. And so this goal of 50, that was what's established in the TMDL document from the state of Michigan. Really, we want to be even lower than that for ideal water quality habitat conditions, but that 50 was set as an interim goal. So you can see on that bar graph on your right that there's quite a bit of fluctuation. There's a lot of natural variability in phosphorus. The weather is a huge driving factor in the phosphorus levels, if we had a wet spring, if we had higher than normal rainfalls, and not really sure what high water levels are going to do to these numbers. How much impact did high water in Lake MACC have on these readings? How much impact will that have this summer? So there's a lot of unknowns, some uncertainties in there, but I think the one thing that we are very confident, you see that blue line there, that's kind of when Project Clarity started, 2013. So we really increased our on-the-ground restoration efforts. And so we can see that that is making a difference. All of that on-the-ground restoration, the wetlands, the agricultural best practices, the improved stormwater, it is making an impact that we are seeing a positive trend in reducing phosphorus numbers. Not where we need to be yet, but we're getting there. Very similar story with the other parameters. So chlorophyll A, this is essentially a measure of the green plant material that's in the water. So it can be a proxy for the algae. So we're not doing direct measurements of algae. They're looking at the chlorophyll A. So again, we've got an ideal range where we want to be at meeting a goal. This is not established by the state. This is just water quality standards. And so we have in recent years been seeing higher than average or higher than historic numbers, certainly not unprecedented high numbers. But again, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Certainly the amount of phosphorus is going to drive chlorophyll. Also the amount of sunlight that is penetrating the water column can have an impact there. And then we're also finding it's not just phosphorus, but also nitrogen. So we're starting to take a closer look at that, not just the phosphorus. And then the third parameter that's included in here is the MACC depth, which is a measure of how clear the water is. So there's a MACC disc, that black and white disc is lowered into the water, and then you take a measurement of how deep that disc disappears. So that's an indication of how far can sunlight penetrate. So that deeper that MACC disc reading is, the more sunlight can get in, the more productive the lake will be. And not just for algae, but also the aquatic plants that live there. So there's a lot less fluctuation in this reading, but we still have quite a ways to go to meet that goal. One other thing that they have been looking at is trying to see if there's a relationship between the amount of phosphorus and the amount of rainfall, because that's what historic research has told us, that phosphorus is delivered to the lake from non-point sources, so during rain. And so far they haven't really seen a significant relationship in that when you look at the entire historic record. So in the little dot plots there, the one on the left is all of the sampling data, and so those dots are scattered all over the place, right? And it's a very weak relationship. But if you look at just the most recent data since AWRI has been doing the monitoring, 2013 to 2019, you start to see a more positive relationship there. So the more rain, the more phosphorus, which is what we would expect to see. So it's starting to behave more like we would expect it to, as opposed to being just all over the place. And it also, that behavior of that positive relationship is how we would expect it to behave, knowing that the system is impacted by non-point sources. So I think that is an indication that that's what we're dealing with. It's not point sources of phosphorus that aren't weather dependent. It is those weather dependent non-point sources that we are dealing with, or having to deal with. So just a couple other highlights from the main report that aren't in the dashboard. As far as what other information is included in there, there is some tributary monitoring that is being done around the Hayworth and the Middle Macatawa wetland restorations. So there's some tributary monitoring and then some sediment monitoring within those wetlands as well. That data is very complicated. I have a hard time reading the report and kind of coming up with a summary, so I didn't try to summarize that data. But then on the fish side of things, they have also been doing fish population studies. So really just looking at the population dynamics of the fish in the lake. And so just a few things I pointed out, or I pulled out from the fish sampling. They are seeing a higher presence of macrophytes, which are those aquatic plants in the areas where they're doing the sampling, which is good. We want those plants to be there because that provides good habitat. And so they're attributing that to lower turbidity. So that's less particles in the water, more sunlight can get through so those plants can grow. So that definitely is a positive trend that they're seeing. They also noted that the turbidity readings and conductivity have been the lowest that since they've been monitoring, in which those high readings of turbidity and conductivity indicate sources of human-induced pollution. So the fact that those are reducing, again, very positive. And then overall, you've got the numbers there for the fish species. There's a chart that shows you the breakdown. Again, there's more detail in the report. But what they're finding fish that are kind of on both ends of the spectrum in terms of some that are tolerant of very poor water quality, like the gizzard shad and spotfin shiner, but they're also finding some good populations of fish that depend on high water quality, the yellow perch, bluegill, pumpkin seed. So we've got kind of a mixed population going on right now. So it's really difficult to draw conclusions from. We don't really have enough data, but this is providing us some good baseline data against which to compare future results. And then the final thing in the report, new this year, we have just not very much data on the iron slag filters, but hopefully you'll remember we've discussed this previously, that these filters were going in agricultural settings to kind of capture and filter phosphorus out of tile drain effluent before it enters the stream. So there's kind of a simplified diagram that shows you the tile drains go into this box full of an iron slag, kind of similar to like a septic system. So here's one that was installed. So the water goes in through the bottom, filters up through that iron slag, and then would outflow through the top. And so that iron slag does a good job at adhering phosphorus to it. So that's what they've been monitoring. How good of a job is it doing? And then also, are there any chemicals being leached out of that iron slag that would be of concern to water quality? So far, again, it's very preliminary because it's not a lot of data, but the data is suggesting that these are performing like we would expect them to. They are removing phosphorus, and there's no indication that they're releasing any harmful chemicals or metals into the environment. So this monitoring will continue. Some of the other that they do with the tributaries is going to be discontinued because of some lack of funding. So any questions about the monitoring report? Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the SECI plate, if I have that correctly, and that's something to the clarity of the water, right?
Right.
With all the progress we made, it looked like there was a big gap. Do you know what it would take to get to your desired level of clarity, or
right? Well,
in terms of whatever you need not to go in the lake?
Yeah, well, and I think part of it is just remembering that this data is based on 3 sample points. So on any given day, the water could be meeting our goal. It's that long-term trend. So, you know, it's based on the input. So if we go and measure clarity after a rain event, you're not going to be able to see very far at all. But if we haven't had rain for 2 weeks, we might see to the bottom of the lake. So it's so dependent on time.
So there's no sensors or anything that you can leave in the lake every day?
There are for turbidity,
Okay.
and they were trying some of those turbidity sensors in the stream locations,
Okay.
so where water is constantly flowing. And I think that data is in the full report
Okay.
for the streams.
Okay.
But yeah, the lake data is just, it's 3
Yeah.
points out of the whole year that they're putting that
Gotcha.
dashboard together from. So
Okay.
if they want on 3 different days, we may be meeting the standards.
Gotcha.
But we also do compare against the state's monitoring. They do monthly. We don't have printed reports from them yet for the last 3 times that they monitored, 2014, 16, and 18. And so their numbers are a little bit different, but they're not taken on the same day. It's a different data set. So any of this monitoring has to be kind of taken with with that in mind,
Okay.
that it is just a snapshot. So.
Any questions for Kelly? All right. Well, thank you, Kelly. And next we have Rob, going to bring us up to speed on the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant.
All right, well, Kelly just warned me that my slides are not looking proper. No, that doesn't look right at all. All right, so this is a quick update on the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant. Let's hope the rest of them here work. Oh boy. That's not good at all. I don't have notes here either. All right, well, if you want to take a look at there's a memo in your packet here. So this is a table that has a description of what doesn't show up on the screen. But if you'll take a look there on the first column, a list of goals that were set when this grant was first implemented. This grant started in 2016. It was awarded from the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative through the EPA before my time. And if I'd had the slides here to show you a couple of the highlights of what happened during the course of this grant. When we started, we had 7 producers that were signed up to receive a cost share on one or more of these practices. When we ended the grant, we had 46. So that was a great, in my mind, really one of the highlights of the projects to have that many people become involved in it. So if you'll look here in the goals, with 1,000 acres of cover crops, we ended up implementing over 5,000 acres. You'll see there's a 1 there as a footnote. So these are the actual unique acres that were implemented. One of the other numbers that we do like to tell people about is that we had almost 10,000 acres of cover crops implemented, but that accounts for the same acres over multiple years. So we've had several growers that implemented cover crops for 3 years, some for 2, some for 1. Kelly can tell you when the number came up, it was 7 acres short of 10,000, and I was not very happy with that. I really wanted that 10,000 number, but then when we added in the grassed waterways and Wascab, we were added another 300 and something acres that had 1 or more best management practices being implemented on them. So that was really a good highlight to get over 10,000. You'll notice on the conservation tillage, that's our no-till reduced tillage. We were short on those acres. That's gives us our best reduction in sediment, but it's difficult to get growers to go from a conventional tillage to a no-till or reduced tillage system. Gypsum application, we were over. The Wascab, that's a water and sediment control basin. We did have 1 of those implemented in Overijssel Township. And to finish the grant, we added a number of grassed waterways. You'll notice up here in the memo, the EPA granted us permission to include grassed waterways as a funded practice. So we were able to fund a few of those, which hopefully the pictures here show up. But we did 3 of them here in Zeeland Township and 1 in Overijssel. This map here is one that some of you may have seen before. This has been developed by Dan Callum at Outdoor Discovery Center. You'll see the green and yellow parcels are what's considered agricultural land. This is based on a 2009 land use data. So we're working on getting that updated. The green parcels are fields that have had 1 or more best management practices implemented on them over the course of Great Lakes Commission grant, Project Clarity, and the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Most of our work was focused in the Upper MACC, Peters Creek, and North Branch subwatersheds. And then a lot of the other work is focused here with Project Clarity in the South Branch and Nordlos Creek. So these parcels that have the hashed green, that's all parkland protected space. Great representation of the amount of work that's been done. So get to a few pictures here to kind of give you a visual on what I'm always talking about. So aerial seeded annual ryegrass into a standing soybean field, and then we had in this cornfield here a mix of, looks like clover, radish, and probably 1 other grass. Cereal rye would be my guess, into a standing cornfield. The process, or what we call that, is interseeding cover crops into a standing crop field. Gypsum application, I get a lot of questions on what actually is gypsum. This is flue gas gypsum, comes from coal burning fire plants or coal burning electrical plants, right? Is that the right way to say it? And then applied by a variety of machines, these two lime spreader trucks there. We've got one grower on the top here. He's actually planting into a standing cereal rye field. The other picture there is the same field 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. You can see if it were bigger, you'd be able to see there are some soybeans popping up in there. And then soybeans planted into, this would be no-till soybeans into a heavy residue cornfield. And then this last picture is a no-tilled corn into a standing cover crop field. That cover crop, when he planted it, was about 3.5 feet to 4 feet tall. This is our WASCOB, Water and Sediment Control Basin. You can see soon after construction, and then that grew. A lot of the grasses came in real nice, and we did end up filling that thing the fall after it was completed. What we're doing here is collecting the water, we're holding it, sediment's dropping out of it, and then it's being released into this structure here and going down in through that grass waterway through a tile line and discharging into the creek near where the trees are. This is one of our...
Does that water come from, Rob, from that, in that?
It's coming from upstream. So you can see right here, it's coming from upstream. There's another waterway that feeds it. It feeds it here, and then off of the picture, there's another location where it's being fed from a field, just surface flow from the field.
So the top right one is before it was filled with water?
Yep. And the bottom right is full of water. Hard to get a sense, but it's about 8 feet deep. This is one of the waterways here in Zeeland Township. If you'll recall, we've had some wet weather. So we actually bulldozed the corn to put this one in last summer. And it came in really nice. This is a picture of the other waterway just adjacent to this one. Same landowner, same field. You can see the water coming off there is nice and clear. We had a lot of water. It actually blew out. You can see up there it blew out a few of these check dams. And you'll see that on a couple of these other pictures. This is another waterway over Isle Township. Big project. Move through. And then some before pictures of a waterway. You'll notice this gap in the trees up here is the same on that other picture. And similarly here, heavy rain. This waterway gathers about 75 acres. And there was enough water that came through here to push all of these out. I actually went back with a sledgehammer and put them back in. So. And that's all I've got. I wish I had some numbers on the screen to show you, but there we go.
How are you capturing the no-till? Are farmers supposed to be reporting it to you? 'Cause
Yep. So when what we do is we measure it. So after they're planted, I go through and we do what's called a line point method. So we lay a 100-foot tape measure diagonally across the planted rows, and at every foot mark, if there's a piece of residue, we count that. So we're trying to target a percentage, and that mark gives us a percentage. For corn, we're trying to target over 50% residue on the field, and then after bean stubble, it's 35%.
I was just curious how many farmers are reporting to you that they are doing no-till. I know in our case, we have quite a few of them that do the no-till, and are you guys getting that information that they are no-till?
So you mean people that aren't enrolling in any of the programs but are no-tilling?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't have that information, but it'd be nice to have. It'd be nice to know exactly how many there were in the area.
Any more questions for Rob? Okay, if not, Carolyn, I believe, is up next. She's going to try and take us through the 2045 long-range transportation plan.
Perfect. Okay, so the first item on the transportation agenda I'm very excited about. MACC staff, we have completed the long-range plan document. We have been working on this for nearly a year now. So today's a big day. We're really happy to be able to bring this to you. As you know, over the past maybe 5-6 months, kind of starting in the summer, we were bringing you chapters to review as we came out with them. And now you've seen all the chapters. Last month at this meeting, we went through chapter by chapter, showing highlights. So this time around, I wanted to focus more on some of the trends that we've seen that have come out of this plan, especially a lot of the data that came from the travel demand model. So I just wanted to show you some of the differences, first between what happened last time we did the plan 4 or 5 years ago for the 2045 plan, and look at the trends, see how things are changing, and then get a little bit into the public participation process. So to start, changes since the 2040 plan. So again, that 4 or 5 years since the data was collected for the last plan, we've already seen a population increase over 4,000 people in the MACC region. Households have increased over 2,000, and then employment has gone up, getting close to that 4,000 mark for different jobs in the area. Some other adjustments from the 2040 plan, we've added 5 more miles of these shared use paths. So we are getting, again, really close to that 200 miles in shared use paths in the MACC region specifically. And as kind of Paul showed, there's even more when you get to a county scale, which is exciting. Going out, looking out to 2045, again, kind of looking at this population number, we are, if we are kind of, again, kind of in this mid between the 2015, 2025, 2045, we're looking at about 157,000 people in the MACC region. That's about an increase of about another 20,000 people that we're expecting over the 25 years. With housing, that goes up, I believe, kind of about 10,000. We're probably around maybe now that 47,000. So again, that's going to go up. They predict maybe about another 10,000 to 2045. With jobs, those are going up as well, but maybe not as much as you would see with population. And that could also be because Holland and the Holland-Zeeland area is really a destination for retirees. It's a great place to retire. But we are seeing an increase there. With those increase, kind of just a summary of that, the estimated population increase is 12% higher than it was in the last plan. So for all of these plans, we knew that this area was growing in population, but even since we created the last plan, it's 12% higher than we thought it would be. The estimated household increase is actually 2% lower based on just the data that went into the modeling. Estimated employment increase stayed the same. So we think about the same for employment numbers. When you're just looking at that overall percent increase for that kind of 25-year span. With, of course, increased population and people moving around for jobs, you're going to have increased vehicle miles traveled. That is what we are expecting, which then we are expecting then some more congestion likely in our region, and then also increased freight movements. Some of this will be because of maybe in those employment centers and different kinds of employment options centered around freight. But then you can also think about, with more people, maybe more home deliveries, which we are all used to seeing in our neighborhoods. This is a congestion map. This is for the base year. So for 2019, I believe that was the base year that we used. There are a couple little spots that have some red highlights which show possible congestion. That orangish yellow will also be roads that have higher congestion, like Riley and James. But you have sort of those pinch points that are current predicted congestion areas. For 2045, we're looking at more of this kind of BL 196 Chicago Drive corridor really highlighted. So that's something that we'll want to keep an eye on and think from a planning perspective, how can we make sure that that can be alleviated into the future? Also, there's more that starts popping up within the city of Holland specifically. And this is just part of that travel demand model with congestion. To review, this 2045 plan has 205 projects that span the years from 2020 to 2045. Again, those first 4 years going out to 2023 would include our current transportation improvement program jobs, so our 4-year tip. And then past that, we would have other jobs like resurfacing. You'd also see possible I&E, so there's improve and expand jobs that might be adding middle turn lanes or added capacity with added lane miles. And with all those projects, the 205 projects, we're looking at an estimated $256 million investment in our region, and that would be a combination of federal, state, and local funds sources. This is going to be a little hard to see, but if you have already seen it on, within the plan, reviewing it, the red projects, these are all the projects within the plan that can be mapped, that have geographic locations. The red would be the projects that are currently in the 4-year tip. Anything that's in blue, those would be those improve and expand jobs that we have noted. And then there's a dark gray lines. The dark gray would indicate all those other long-range projects that can be mapped. And those would be things like resurfacing. So nothing's physically changing within that structure of the road, but we're anticipating repavement would be needed. Some of these projects are doubled up. So, we say 205 projects. You might have that same road a couple times within the 25 years, because we assume that over 25 years, you may have to repave something a couple times. Another big piece of the long-range plan is to do an environmental justice analysis, or we call it EJ for short, but environmental justice is important. Kind of mainly when I talk about it, I think of two things in particular. Environmental justice usually looks at minority populations and low income. For us, we also added aging because we know that, again, this is a retirement hotspot. But two things I usually kind of think about and talk about in terms of EJ is, are we investing in areas that have low income and minority populations? And then also, if projects are happening, are we making sure that they're not negatively impacted by those projects? So one of the main things that we want to see is, yes, we are investing in those neighborhoods, in those communities. So for the minority population, for the MACC area, that would be 17% of the MACC area we would consider to be minority areas. And within the 205 projects, we've identified 121. So about 59% of projects are occurring in those areas where minorities live. So again, 17% of the area, but almost 60% of the projects. So I think that's a really positive thing. Low income, very similar. Low income would be 10% of the physical space of the MACC area, the land quantity, but 58% of the projects. Aging would be a little bit wider cast of a net, 22% of the square miles, and is still, though, very high at 59% of those projects. So to give you an idea how we analyze this, we use ArcGIS mapping program to help us determine these areas, but we are able, based on, so there's a dot density here that shows kind of individuals throughout our area that would be considered minority in this case. And then we are able to then identify what swaths of land that would be. So that blue would be your general area where you consider minority populations to be. And then we overlay that same boundary with the projects that we have planned and essentially count up to see how many projects touch or go through that area. And if something is running through, I think we determined, it doesn't automatically get counted just if it touches it. I think, if it's, for instance, a larger project, I think, is it 25% or more? And so that's how we determine how those are calculated. We then moved into public participation in this plan. So kind of once the plan was a little bit more solidified, those project lists were created, and we knew where some of those improve and expand jobs were happening. That's when we really got into some more of the public participation. We had a survey, a digital survey that went out to our residents in many different ways. We were really excited in the 2040 plan when we did a very similar survey, also online. We received 40 responses digitally, and this time around we received 243. So a really great increase in feedback and participation. From the consultation end, consultation is another requirement of a long-range plan. And we kind of did this in a couple of different ways. So one main piece is that there's kind of a consultation packet of information that will be mailed out to different stakeholders. And that was a very lengthy list. I want to say it was probably near like 80 to 100 different addresses that got mailed out to with those specific stakeholders. And we had some responses back. And so to give you kind of a flavor of who those would go out to, responses came back from the Allegan Drain Office, Holland Hospital, FHWA, and NRCS, which would be the Natural Resource Conservation Services, I believe, NRCS. And just on Friday, we received 2 more consultations back from League of Women Voters and from Petal Holland. So those will also be included in the final plan that gets submitted. And I do have copies of those 2 letters back if you'd like to see them afterwards. We also, beyond just sending out kind of that consultation packet, we had 2 sort of in-person meetings. So we met with freight providers face-to-face so we could sit down, talk about some of the issues that they're facing as freight providers, even things down to certain intersections that they have problems at, safety concerns that they may have in certain areas. All of that was documented for the plan. And then we also had multiple cycling advocacy individuals and groups come to the MACC office, sit down in front of a big giant map and just start marking up things that they were worried about, mostly in terms of safety. But then also a little bit with connectivity too. They really looked at, as a cyclist, I might be in this particular spot and then all of a sudden I get here and I don't know where to go. So it's mainly connectivity and safety around those topics. Mara and I also did ride the MACC bus one day. We rode routes 1, 5, and 6. Route 1 would be kind of your north side. You can think Meyer Target kind of route. Route 5 would be going south along Washington through the city of Holland. And then Route 6 would be sort of your Holland Heights, 16th Street, more to the east. And that was a really good experience just to talk with the bus drivers, talk with the riders about their experience and how they get around our community. So that is kind of the main overview of this project and this plan. This is one of the central documents that we create for our region, and we're really excited about it.
Any questions for Carolyn?
Any comments from MDOT that you want to jump in about?
I'll
plans?
give one comment I had just working with Carolyn and the MACC staff here is they've done a really good job with this plan. They've really revamped it, and you got new components to this plan that are really relatively new that you have to document and adhere to, like performance measures as such, and I think you guys did a great job with that.
Thank you.
Kudos to you guys. I hope you guys approve this today.
Thank you. I really made sure the whole thing was color coordinated. I had
That's
3
what
main
stuck
colors
out.
I worked with.
Which is a good segue to, we do need a motion. So the motion would be to adopt Resolution 20-06, approving the MACC 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. I can. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, in terms of my comments, I think that this is just wonderful. Carolyn and Mara have done an awesome job, really, and the content, they've really done a great job communicating that content in an easy, understand manner. So, yeah, way to go. But as far as a motion, I'd like to make the
Can I
motion.
get a second? Second from Skip. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Carolyn. I think you're still on next.
Yeah, so this next item relates, I do not have slides for these, but the next item relates to air quality, and this is in relation to the long-range plan. So as you are aware, I think from, when we did the TIP last year, whenever we have these kind of foundational documents, the TIP and the long-range plan, we also need to have updated air quality conformity analyses done to essentially look at all of the projects in the plan and go through sort of that modeling process to ensure that the projects in the plan are not going to negatively impact our air quality, since Allegan County is still considered a non-attainment for ozone, and Ottawa County is considered a maintenance area, essentially. There are some lengthy documents on the air quality conformity for Allegan and Ottawa. So there's two separate ones. Those are found in the appendix of the long-range plan. And when the Air Quality Analysis Division at MDOT went through our plan and our projects, they found that all of the projects that we have listed there, particularly those I&E, those improve and expand because something is changing in the roadway, they have found that they will not negatively impact our air quality in our region, and therefore the plan meets the needs of air quality. And one thing I also wanted just to add about the air quality piece is that, well, I think that's probably the gist of it. We are kind of fortunate in terms of our process with having to go through air quality. It's become much more streamlined, so if there are amendments to projects, but essentially those projects meet the air quality for both Allegan and Ottawa. And I feel like there was one extra thing. Oh, budgets. That's what I wanted to mention. I knew there was one thing hanging there. So air quality budgets. And this is the piece that how they determine if you're meeting your air quality standards for those projects is that we have a budget. We essentially have a piggy bank of how much ozone that could be contributed in our region. And it's saying that we're not going over our allotted budget. So that was the point I wanted to make clear with that. Pretty straightforward. So again, the two resolutions before you, 2004, 2005, they mentioned the long-range plan and then also the TIP, so the current TIP cycle.
So you need a motion for to adopt Resolution 2004 approving the 2015 and 1997 ozone NAAQS conformity analysis for the 2045 long-range transportation plan and 2020 through 2023 transportation improvement program for the MACC Area Coordinating Council.
I'll move the adoption of Resolution 2004 as presented.
Okay, second? Any opposed? Okay. All in favor, motion passes. Okay, motion to adopt Resolution 2005. Or did you cover this already, Carolyn?
Yeah, so it would be
Okay.
the two. They're separated because it's two different counties.
That's fine.
Yep.
2005, approving the conformity determination report for the 1997 ozone NAAQS for the Grand Rapids Orphan Maintenance Area for the Ottawa County part of the 2045 Long-Range Transportation Plan and 2020 through 2023 TIP for the MACC. Can I get a motion?
I'll move we
Tom?
adopt Resolution 2005. Support.
Support there. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Up next, we have MDOT. No, sorry, you have a TIP amendment.
I do. Yeah, this is a big one this month. So I put a new amendment in front of you. because there was still one extra update after it sent out, I think, the second time. So I'll start at the beginning here. On the front, you're going to have sort of like your standard tip amendments. On the back side, you have highlighted in blue. These are some of the new amendments because of the bonding through the state. So those are kind of a separate item in a way. To start off at the beginning, we have two new bridge projects in Ottawa County that got funding. It's kind of a grant process. They were awarded. So we're really happy to be able to have those. The first one is a bridge replacement on 96 over the Black River. And then the second is Byron Road. It's a rehab of the bridge, so not a full replacement. So those are two new projects to be added to the tip. The third one down. All right, so the third one is sort of I need a motion, I guess, support of adding the project, but then removing the project. So I'll go in a little bit more detail. So we had some CMACC funds that were going to be given to Zealand Charter Township, just down the road here. They were looking to put a pathway in. I'll even back up even further. So there was currently a 2020 project to do a pathway in Zealand Charter Township using CMACC funds. They already built the pathway in 2018, so we can't use those funds now. So we want to, anytime something like that could happen, we want to try to still use those funds where we said we were going to put them. So because Zealand Charter could no longer use it on the pathway that was already built, we looked at putting the pathway on 64th Street, because 64th Street pathway was already going to be installed. So we looked at possibly transitioning those funds over to the new pathway that's going in this year in 2020. But when you're using CMACC funds for that clean air mitigation funding, you have your pathway, if it's a pathway using those funds, has to be at a certain standard. So instead of being, I think, at 8 feet, which was planned, it would have to go up to 10 feet. So going up to 10 feet meant about double the cost of the project, and also a lengthier process due to more easements that would have to be done with homeowners. It just wasn't feasible. But in the JobNet system through MDOT, I had to build the job so that the CMACC department could review it. And then, we determined, nope, this isn't the way that the township wants to, go forward with this. So then we had to suspend the project. So this is kind of more of a clerical piece. The project is happening just through local funds instead of utilizing the federal funds that would make the project much more complicated. So that one's just kind of, more of an edited piece through the office. The fourth one there is a MACC bus purchase. We were able, so as many of you know, for MACC Transit, there's an operating fund and a capital fund. So operating essentially is, for those kind of managerial pieces in a way, a little bit more, but capital is like to actually buy something. And Elisa came to me and asked if we could move some money around from operating and put it into capital so that they could purchase another bus. So this is just kind of those movements of funds. So $120,000 went from the operating into the capital. So that is that one. And then on the back side, the highlighted in blue, these are projects that either, there's I think one new project, 3 of them got accelerated. So the first 3 listed there, I-196 westbound, and then US 31, and then another I-96 between Byron and 32nd. All of those were, I believe, accelerated. So the first one there, that one just was a budget change and a little bit of a length change. So this went from just a basic resurface to now a full reconstruct because there is a lot of money available for that one. The second one down, that one was moved to 2021. It was a 2022 originally, and again, more funds, so it can be a reconstruction. And the third one down, the 2022, that also was originally 2023. It's being bumped up a year. And then below, so this is that one change that was made. When I sent this out, the internal JobNet system through the state only had the engineering piece there at the moment. But then I think probably even just an hour or two later, they added the construction phase. So it's the same project. It's the same project number, if you'll see. But the actual, construction year will be 2023. And that will be along that, BL 196 corridor. And because these are big new projects, I don't know
Yes.
if you want to say anything about them.
Well, you actually did a good job covering most of it, Carolyn. I appreciate that. Again, as everybody probably knows, the governor had instituted $3.5 billion in the Rebuilding Michigan Roads program. This was approved by the State Transportation Commission late last month. With this money, we really can accelerate some projects, as Carolyn alluded to. We can also do more long-term fixes as well on the state's more highly traveled and more utilized and important highway systems throughout the state. In particular, one thing I wanted to mention is we will, once we have these approved and it goes through the MPO process, there may be some changes as we go along. We have to balance our statewide lettings as well, so we just can't throw everything out for bid. Let's say throughout the summer and the fall, we have to kind of stagger them out, and we're doing this statewide as well. So there may be some tweaks to it as we go along. Maybe in the year that we obligate, but I think for the most part they should stay, where they are now. But just don't be surprised by that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Carolyn, and I think you need a motion to approve the tip amendment, so I skip. Howard second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, thank you. Good to see some work happening there.
One quick reminder, before you leave, there are census info cards. Please take them. They have who you might be, and then there's also a yard sign that you can bring to your county, city, or township buildings. So please pick those up on your way out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Tyler, any updates from MDOT?
Really, the biggest update is just the bonding program right now. In addition to that, I've worked with the MACC staff. We want to set up a what we call a Grand Region Non-Motorized Committee. That's the 13 counties of West Michigan. You kind of want to talk about some non-motorized, standards, design standards, things like that, just to get some information about, what's going on in non-motorized community as well. So we're looking to hold that possibly in the spring. No formalized date set up yet, but everybody is invited. I can send out more information. We kind of finalize that. Aside from that, it's all from me.
Anything to add?
I guess just echo some of the other comments about the long-range plan. I think that staff did a really great job on making it more readable and understandable to the lay person and the general public.
Yeah, that helps. Great. All right, administrative issues. First up, executive director update. I think I filled you all in when we started the meeting, so we'll skip that. Banking powers. This is something it's a little bit of a pain, but we have to go through every time we have a change in personnel and directors and so forth. So Tyler Kent will be starting March 1st, so we just need authorization to add him to our bank account. And then because we have a policy where checks in excess of $1,000 need a second signature, and that's usually fulfilled by whoever the chair is at the time, or whoever's available. So the only addition here would be Tom, that we're adding from the executive committee in case Dave's not available or somebody else is not available. So, and then additionally, I think we just need approval to have Tyler, once he starts, so just standard to enter into contracts and MOUs that the executive directors normally allowed to enter into. If I can get a motion. Thank you, Howard. Second? Thank you, Skip. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks. Credit card policy update. I was not here at the last, or when the auditors were here, but I understand they had some questions about how we process a credit card payment. And so Judy did some research to find out what some nonprofit organizations might have, and I believe currently Judy pulls the receipts, matches them up to the expenses. And if I have it correctly, we're proposing adding that the executive director also
Reviews it.
reviews it
prior to
before it
vote.
goes to our accountant. So we were missing a step there, and we're doing that. In the process of kind of looking at some of these things, it looked like some of our, I think maybe when Tim had started and they had added him to the credit card we had with Macatawa Bank. Banks tend to do this sometimes without asking you, but they increase the credit limit to $24,000. And we don't need that. I went through the credit card statements for about a year. And we don't need anything close to that. So I want to correct one thing on item number 6, where it says credit limit for each credit card account will be max 15. That should be a total of 15,000 of the combined MACC staff. So, whether once Tyler's here, he can decide is it 555 or however that needs to be. So.
Just to clarify, there is only one credit card account, but we
Right.
have cards, like user cards.
Yeah, user cards. So the total limit on top, I would like that to be limited to 15, and make sure that you notify the bank appropriately.
And we'll have to have Tyler do that when he gets back, because I can't do it yet.
Yeah.
Right,
But we probably could. I could probably send them something.
okay. Yes, you could.
Yeah. So, we do have one Lowe's credit card account for $7,000 that has not been used. I think that was acquired for some long-term improvements to the building, which is really a MACC Holdings function to approve all those capital improvements. So that's under lock and key for now until, not that anything unusual happened there, but the purpose of the card was to get the 5% discount, plus apparently they needed that for the tax exempt status. So, but once that's done, we'll close that out. Just need a motion to approve that policy.
So
Okay.
Support.
Support. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let's see, financial report. I've not had a chance to talk to our accountant about it. If you look at the revenues, they might look a little bit short. I don't know if it's a timing of some grant funds, but if you look down, you'll see a corresponding decrease in expenses anticipated to the year. So really don't have a whole lot to add to that, other than, bank statements are pretty solid and the MACC is in good standing financially. Let's see, what else do we have?
Executive report.
Yeah, we have the minutes from the MACC Executive Committee for Feb 10. If there's any questions, I'd certainly open it up to that. The only one thing, kind of continuing in that vein on the financial side, we'll probably work with Tyler once he's here to get a really in-depth understanding of what our accountant does for us. I think because of the transitions we've had, it's become apparent that no one fully knows everything he does. So he's pretty involved in that. And he's very, very competent. But one, we want to understand that, and we want to understand the risk in terms of, because he's part of a small firm, is there a backup if something happens to him? And, you know, if some of those responsibilities need to be split up just from a risk management perspective, so. Any questions about the minutes? Okay. All right, Glenn. You're up.
I'm up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for showing up here today. I'll make it quick and easy here. The current projects that are on right now, first one is a good one for us, and Gentex is building a second manufacturing building on Riley Street. The footings are in, and the other things have been taken care of. I think by the spring, they'll have what they need to build with, and it's gonna be about the same size or whatever it is as the one that's existing there right now on Riley Street. The township's first hotel, Avid Hotel, which is part of the Holiday Inn chain, continues to move forward on 84th Avenue. Expect that to be completed by the end of the fall. We got a place on Byron Road called Constar. You'll see it if you come out of Zeeland and work towards this section here. It's a storage building for places where they can store items. Then we've got a Pangea Reptile. That's a different one. Online reptile store. It's over by the by the reptile. It's recently opened over on the township side on right on 96th Avenue over there, or just inside there. And it's getting bigger, and they're going to add to it. And I don't understand it, but that's what it is. Those things are worth $1,000, some of them, so it's got to be pretty good. And then over also up 96th Avenue over there, Riley Grove Assisted Living Facility. That's over there too by 96th Avenue, and that's on its way on up too also. And the other thing that I wish we had more of, and this is a current one from 19 ton that we'd like to be able to get over a bridge over there coming from Holland and Zeeland and stuff like that to get to us, but we're not allowed to do that. And I'm not going to say they didn't do it, but that's just the way it is. So we have a couple of years yet maybe to get it done. So it's very, very annoying. So other than that, we're doing well. We're enjoying it. We'll keep going.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Any comments from any other members to add to the meeting? Lisa, good to see you again.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. And I just wanted to let you all know that MACC staff are working on what we call the PTASP, which is the Public Transportation Area Safety Plan. And that's something that includes performance measures, and I wanted to make you aware of it because once that's completed, we'll be bringing that to the MACC for approval and to incorporate that into the TIP. But
Okay.
yeah, it's coming probably in the next 6 months.
Okay, look forward to it. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, if not, our next meeting would be March 23rd at noon at Olive Township Hall. And otherwise, if I can get a motion to adjourn. Second. Any opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you again for spending a little more time than normal. And we'll look forward to meeting next week.
Oh, you're okay.
Yes.